Namaste. Let me open with a short passage from Sri Aurobindo. It's part of his talk, famous talk, Uttar Pada speech, where Sri Aurobindo in a way gives the vision statement for the future and India's role in it. This is the last bit of the Uttar Pada speech. I say no longer that nationalism is a creed, a religion, a faith. I say that it is the Sanatan Dharma which for us is nationalism. The Hindu nation was born with the Sanatan Dharma. With it, it moves, and with it, it grows. When the Sanatan Dharma declines, then the nation declines. And if the Sanatan Dharma were capable of perishing, with the Sanatan Dharma it would perish. The Sanatan Dharma, this is nationalism. This is the message that I have to speak to you. This gives us, in a very short nutshell, the key to not only India's rise, but the idea of Akhand Bharat. First of all, when we take the spiritual perspective, which is what Sri Aurobindo and the Mother give us, then we have to look at things from a top-down view. It is not that people begin to think about Akhand Bharat and then they try ways and means to achieve it. Rather, people begin to think of Akhand Bharat because it's a spiritual reality which is trying to manifest. So when a spiritual reality tries to manifest, when the time comes, when the time has not come, it will not even start manifesting, like we have in the Upanishads, the Pragya, then Hiranyagarbha, and the Virat. So when the time comes, the seeds of a truth are released into the atmosphere, and it presses upon the human mind first as an idea, and this idea is taken up more and more by those who are open to it, and then it enters the heart as a dream, and one begins to love the idea, that it enters the life, and there are people who try to find ways and means to realize it, and finally it culminates in the actual physical fact. Several examples we can see. When Jhansi Ki Rani, she started when she was on the pyre, people must have thought, the Britishers must have thought, well, we have conquered. They didn't know that she has already sown the seed in our modern time. Not that she is the first one, but she sowed the seed in modern times. On the pyre of Rani Lakshmi Bai, the writ of India's destiny was written. Because that's how things happen. Or let's say when it enters the dream stage, we have now the recent history of Israel and how the Jews wandered for thousands of years, at least 2000 years, all over the world, but they never let go of this idea. And one day it manifests as a reality, whatever be the challenges. So what we need is faith, courage and aspiration. We should not start with doubt. How can it manifest? We are given to conceive an idea, we are given to dream about an idea, we should love it, we should have the passion to achieve it. Whether it will be in our own lifetime or not is not the question. If the dream is nurtured with faith and sufficient courage, it is bound to manifest, because he who gives the dream gives also the power to realize it in its own time through the instrument that he has chosen. This is essentially we should remember. So just as a human being has a physical body, has a psychological or a mental body and a causal body, so too a nation from the spiritual perspective, at least this is what Mother and Sri Aurobindo have revealed. And if you see the vision of Swami Vivekananda, when he sees the golden Bharat Mata as a golden Devi, and of course Mother and Sri Aurobindo, a country or a nation is not a piece of earth, not just a land mass, not just the soil. It also has a soul. So a nation has a spiritual reality called the soul of the nation. This is an idea which has been accepted in certain quarters of the West also. And then it also has a mental reality. So mental body of a nation is composed of the great thoughts which continue to echo, re-echo, reverberate in the corridors of a mind. And they come back again and again. And then it also has a vital body, which is the life of a nation, which we see expressed in its many various ways, in its culture, in its festivals, in its ways of life, the way we have our own unique way. And then finally, it has a physical reality. Now, all these things are together. It's not just that we have a soul and we don't have a body. We have a soul, as Swami Ramdas had said, we have a soul, we are a soul and we have a body. So we must remember that it's not that it is either or, all of it must be together. But all creations begin from within outward, and if we take the view of the Gita, like the Ashwat tree, they begin also from above downwards. So it has already entered the realm of the idea. See, Sri Aurobindo released this idea long back in modern times, and the mother had put the map of the Akhand Bharat in the playground, and which included Burma, which included Sri Lanka. A lot of people have doubts and they have all kinds of ideas. And when mother was asked, she said, "This is a spiritual vision. This is bound to manifest." And she has also given a roadmap as to how it is going to manifest. So we must have faith and the courage to follow that. And what does it mean? How are we going to realize it? First, we must live the vision of the undivided, indivisible, rather, I would say, India. What it means to have the vision of the undivided, indivisible India, and that's where we have the key, it is Sanatan Dharma. So, India rises with Sanatan Dharma. And India declines with the decline of Sanatan Dharma. And that's what we see India decline, because at a point of time, Sanatan Dharma was reduced to just few narrow streams. It lost its wide impulse, which we see in the days of Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and slowly turned into narrow channels of worldly escape from worldly life. But Sanatan Dharma in its widest stream has once again appeared, like the mighty Saraswati joining the Ganga and Yamuna. And we must also begin to apply this Sanatan Dharma into every sphere of life. This is the need of the hour. So this Sanatan Dharma has to be lived in our life. It's not enough to read the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita and remember them. We have to live it. That's what Sri Aurobindo says, that how are we going to achieve it? He says in one of his passages, we have to live the Aryan ideals. It's not enough to recover the Vedas and the Upanishads in the thought. It's not enough to, go about preaching the Gita and then, get troubled by the slightest problem. Gita teaches us equanimity. It teaches us faith. It teaches us complete surrender to God's will and to live according to the will of God. So this is what is the need of the hour, that we must begin to live the Aryan way of life, the true way of life. Secondly, there is a need for understanding, and not only understanding, but disseminating the idea of Sanatan Dharma and Indian nationalism in the true way. We should not have any confusion amongst us as to what really is Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma has many aspects, but at least the core aspects. Because I still see people debating over the gods and goddesses and their presence, and we should be very crystal clear of how the Sanatan Dharma cosmology operates. This itself is going to, when Sanatan Dharma rises and we put before the world something so beautiful, it is bound to turn the eyes of the elite, which are there in every religion, every country, every ideological groupings. When people will see in every ideology and religion, there are some people who have a genuine seeking, but they are caught up in a web, either because of birth or because they don't know any other alternative. I have friends across the different religions, but they are looking for something great and high. And we see that nowadays a lot of ex-Muslim movements are taking place in Europe. Many churches have gone empty, but they have nothing. We have nothing to be offered. We have nothing to offer to them. We talk about Sanatana Dharma, but we should show how this is really, really something so wonderful. Then, after all, we all know that there is nothing which can really nourish this world and rejuvenate it and give it a new lease of spiritual life except Sanatana Dharma. We are aware, but we need to communicate it in the way people would understand. This means that there should be a preparation. All the think tanks should prepare documents on, let's say, law and Sanatana Dharma and law. What should be the law, basis of law? So right now we have reason. We have all these democratic ways in which we have constitution and the law. But that cannot be, because now we are leading a double life. We have something imported from the West, a democratic model, a rational constitution, but that's not how we should. We should have our own development. And let's say law. How does the Sanatana Dharma look at law? what is dharma, which is so important to us. And there should be think tanks who should prepare a draft on what should be law according to Sanatana Dharma, what should be education according to Sanatana Dharma. And all this should be done with tremendous courage. For instance, Gita to be introduced in the schools or the college, we must be bold enough to express that this is not a religious scripture. We understand the difference between religion and spirituality. India itself should be declared, if you ask me very frankly, not a secular nor a religious, but a spiritual country. Now, these are new things which we must present to the world so that the world can understand that the divide between secular and religion is a false divide. They both can be harmonized in the spiritual vision. Even science, we should have a spiritual basis of understanding science, polity, administration, law, medicine, health, education, defense, policies. They should all be governed basically by the Sanatana Dharma background. And then when we have this first as a model, a draft in terms of a document, and then at the national level, when this is being implemented, there is an attempt already happening at that level, then people will have something to turn to. And when they see that there is something very beautiful, something very glorious, not just about the past, of course, we dwell upon the past, but let's say a new literature. We can't be going back always to Kalidas and Valmiki and Vyas, which is wonderful. But we should also produce that kind of literature. Now, once that happened, and this initially needs a breakthrough. Now, once that breakthrough takes place, there is a critical mass. We'll see that there are people all over the world who will begin to look at something which is new, because right now there is a vacuum. People are caught between religions and ideologies which are dying. And they are destined to die, and now their fault lines are becoming too prominent. And this is the time that we should present to the world a new vision. And that vision on the basis of Sanatana Dharma. How does Sanatana Dharma understand nation? Not as a piece of land. How does Sanatana Dharma understand true nationalism versus false nationalism? The nationalism of Lord Rama vis-a-vis the nationalism of Ravana. Our idea of Ashwamedh Yagya. All these things in modern context. Of course, we are not going to send a horse and do the Ashwamedh Yagya. But Ashwamedh Yagya implied that whenever it is about the relation between the center and the states. Now, all these are wonderful topics. Each of them is a subject for discussion. And I don't want to take too much time because each of these issues will take a lot of time to discuss. But basic idea is that we ourselves must be aware as the standard bearers of Sanatana Dharma as to what it is, so with such clarity that whenever a question is asked of us, we should be able to answer without any hesitation or doubt. And we should know that we are going to present something much more beautiful. It's not my religion versus your religion. It's religion versus spirituality. This is the concept which is coming up and catching up in the youth. A lot of youth who are looking for spirituality. And unfortunately, the spiritual side of religions themselves have finished it because they just became a socio-political system. So, Sanatana Dharma has a very clear ground right now. And I believe that if Sanatana Dharma begins to rise, many people on the other side of the border, you will see that they are also seeking. The common man is seeking. We are not aware of it. The people across that border and this border are not just the politicians. The average person is seeking for a new light. And therein lies the hope. So with this little very brief introduction, and as I said, Sri Aurobindo has spoken of India as a Devi, as a goddess Durga, as the guardian deity. This concept was there in some of the ancient civilizations and cultures, the idea of a guardian deity for a nation. We have Kul Devta, Grama Devta, all these are very beautiful concepts. And we must bring it into existence and live that life. So India's guardian deity is Durga. And if we invoke her presence, Divine Mother in this land of India, Sri Aurobindo has given that beautiful Durga's throat, and our minds are informed with the thoughts which once stirred not far back times and they still reverberate somewhere in the minds of our forefathers. And if our hearts can be set aflame with the same aspiration that the rishis wandering in the age of the Upanishad sang when they said Asado Ma Sadgamya, tamaso ma jyotirgamya, mrityor ma amritam gamya, then there is nothing which is impossible. In fact, the truth may be nearer than we believe. Namaste. We can take up the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Aruti. I hope you are able to listen to me.
Yes, I am able to listen. If you want, I can repeat the question which is there with me, the 10 questions.
Yes, I shall read out.
Yes,
And I think,
yes, please do that.
the first question, I think we will take up one question after the other for the
Yes.
recording and proper comprehension.
Yeah.
The first question is a unity in Akhand Bharat, right? Primarily cultural, spiritual, or political?
So, in the new thought, new conception that the age we have entered in, the age of synthesis, we should not either or, but this and that. So, it is all of them together because what is the use of having a spiritual unity which cannot manifest on a physical ground level? But yes, first spiritual. That's how the rishis have created India or Bharat. They started with a spiritual unity. They went on to create a cultural unity, then living unity, which even today we can see it all across India from west to east and north to south. And then it should manifest as a political and eventually a physical unity. So at every level it has to take place because, and that's why Sri Aurobindo was so keen that this partition must and will go. That's how he has put it. Because if the body, it's like Khand Murti is not worshipped in our culture. Why? Because gods must be wholesome and full. So even the body must be full. So, but starting with spiritual, then cultural, and then political, and political leading towards a physical unity as one single unit.
Here is the second question that emanates from the answer to the first question. It is about the concept. Given today's geopolitical conditions, what are the challenges and opportunities for fostering cooperation and unity among nations of the Indian subcontinent? How do geopolitical factors impact the concept of Akhand Bharat?
Yes, so what we need to understand is how geopolitics is actually shaping out. Primarily, as we know, that as far as the Asian continent, and if we come to immediately, so these are the three main blocks. One is the Europe and American bloc, which is the Western world, and then you have the Middle East world, and then you have this kind of Asian bloc, which has Southern bloc and Far Eastern bloc. But primarily, we see a lot of geopolitics till today. There has been centered around the petrodollar. Now that is collapsing. It is going to collapse. So there is going to be a vacuum another 20 years down the line. And I think this is being realized more and more. Then a lot of Chinese geopolitics has been centered around the chip. And we see that's why they are so keen on the Aksai Chin and why they want to please Pakistan or try to control Pakistan. Both America had the Cold War interest is basically because of the chip. Now, once we begin to read these messages, we are the ones we should be pioneer in that. So, this whole idea of SARC initially was to create a solid ground against the dangers of Red China, which somehow, I mean, Sri Aurobindo had pointed it, as I said it probably in some other talk, in America, when during the Chinese aggression of 62, the then president, Robert Kennedy, he's the one, John F. Kennedy, he's the one, he pointed out that somebody from India has written about the dangers from the Red China, and you people didn't listen to him. He thought it was written in 60. And it was told to him that no, this book itself, Sri Aurobindo left his body in 1950. So we have to be very, very clear that our real danger is not Pakistan. It is China. China has kept turning us towards Pakistan, and we are both engaged in a game which is a lose-lose situation. Yes, Pakistan has to be handled. It's not the real issue. The real issue is China. And I think this is something which India is beginning to become aware, at least in the last few years. Because both in terms of its power, muscle work, and slowly the nations which are around, this is a work which has already started, begin to realize now that it's not just about India and China. China is a threat to everybody, every small nation, it's likely to gobble up. And once this kind of a setup can come together, where people can come together, and that's where a lot of politics, both very good diplomacy as well as backdoor diplomacy is required, where all the neighboring countries, to an extent it has happened, it's a time is not sufficient to explain what all has happened backdoor, to take these countries into confidence and form a geopolitical unity against the intrusions of China. Many countries don't realize right now, because India is the facing the border. We should also be very clear in recognizing Tibet and supporting it. See, there are many things we have not done. Even now we talk about one China. We are afraid, as if this fear must go. So yes, geopolitical conditions, it's a opportunity, because this is the time when US is turned against China, and China has tried inroads in the Middle East, but then India is now been welcome. More and more India is making the inroads. And once that happens, and China's own foolishness, or maybe I would say Devi Prerna, that it is exposing itself more and more. It's a tremendous opportunity for India to take the lead. And it must do so courageously. So just I am giving some brief hints. We can maybe, write more about it. So the challenge is China. At the same time, the opportunities for fostering cooperation and unity among the nations of the subcontinent, yes. Also in terms of trade and everything, this we should have a much better trade agreements with these countries which are around. They must be linked together in a kind of unity which becomes like inseparable. And that was Mother had suggested that all these countries should come together and form a kind of federated unity. She even saw Pakistan splitting into 5 parts. This is way back. That 3 to 5 parts, 71 she spoke about it. And then each of these parts will begin to join India, want to join India. And join India not as India, but as a kind of federated unity. And that is the structure suitable for India. So even our political system has to shift from a democracy as it is today to a more federal structure, giving a reasonable autonomy to these different units. But at the same time, there has to be a certain things which are very central, like education, law, finance and defense. These 4 have to be common, and all the rest, and then a very mutual cooperation in every level. Fearlessly we should go about it. I mean, not that we should not be vigilant as long as the bordering nations are concerned, but still we should go about fearlessly. Both should go on together, not to make any of them pariah. Engage, but with strength, not as a weakling.
Here is one more concern.
Yes.
While we talk about the idea of Akhand Bharat, the concern and the fear are about the diverse demography that this region of Indian subcontinent has. How does the diverse demography of this region influence the idea of Akhand Bharat? Does the presence of different religious and ethnic groups pose the challenges or opportunities for India?
Yes, so see, this is the grand project of creation, unity in diversity. And I would say India has been chosen precisely to realize it. And that's why all the problems in India, that there is nowhere else we find this kind of diversity. Now, first thing is that instead of, grouping people according to the religious affiliations, we should try more and more to group them according to the psychological affiliations. This is how ancient India had done the ordering of mankind. All human beings are not the same. But instead of saying that this is this religion, this thought has come actually into the world nowadays. And this religion equal to this. Instead of that, we had this idea of Asur type, Rakshas type. Of course, we don't use the terms today. We have to understand, like say something like what Hamas did. It is something adharma. It is absolutely Asuric, not Asuric. It is Rakshasic. So barbaric. And to stand against it is something which is important. So like that, when we begin to take this into consideration, that instead of the religious diversity, we spread the idea of the psychological diversity of mankind. And there it will be much easier to find the link. The link is in the common aspiration which is there in every human being. And this aspiration has to be brought out. I think to an extent, this was the idea when the great Nara came, which is so true. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. We have strengthened religious, not diversity, but religious grouping, unfortunately, by appeasement. And long back, Sri Aurobindo said that it cannot come about by Muslim appeasement, because when you are doing it, you are actually strengthening. It is the same thing, like Harijan. So you have begun to brand a group. No, the branding should be, well, this particular group is dangerous to the world, to the society at large, and we must take very strong action, regardless of its religious affiliations. At the same time, there are groups which are beautiful. At least they have a possibility, and they must be encouraged. Now, this will require initially, it is very challenging, because there will be suspicions from both sides. We have a very big baggage. All of us have a big baggage. And yet we have to take that leap. That's how it can be. If we keep permanently divided in camps according to religion, that was the game. That's what Pakistan did. And see where it has led itself to. So instead of dividing on the basis of religion, we should be able to not divide, but stratify human consciousness. And even the democratic worlds have done this. That, well, there are people who are like good citizens and people who are not so good citizens, people who are criminals. So we don't do that, but we have this idea of who is truly a Bharatiya. And that is the idea which should be encouraged. Patriotism. Patriotism is a very sattvic thing. Nationalism is also important because, nationalism is rajasic. So ego. But ego also must be strengthened. We belong to India. This should go. And I think this thought is coming more and more. So it is a challenge, it is still a challenge, and I think the only way this challenge can be permanently addressed, finally, with finality, is when we begin to understand and live Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma has taken this challenge and it has done it well in way back times. Why it collapsed? It collapsed not because the invasions took place. It collapsed because it lost its own fabric in Mayavad and Mokshvadi parampara. Even then, for nearly till Chandragupta Maurya's empire, and even then Ashoka down the line and many others, it could still resist the invasions. But when it turned into that Mokshvadi dhara, that's when the problem took place. Sannyas, that's when the problem took place. So we must live the Sanatana Dharma and its ideal and be strong. It's so important. There should be no fear when we meet the adversary. We should be strong. Very clearly, we should be able to say truthfully and honestly, there's something happening. I'm so glad when I see our present, Foreign Affairs Minister call out the truth without hesitation. This is important. Courageously calling out wherever there is something which is amiss. Equally, courageously welcoming all that is beautiful and can be uplifted. It will require time because we have a lot of baggage. But if we take that steps, I'm sure it will be done.
Historically speaking, the different parts of what we now pose as Akhand Bharat were parts of our country.
Yes.
And culturally we have been one. That's what we have been propagating. But the question is, in the current context, is the idea of Akhand Bharat possible only on historical and cultural backgrounds?
Well, historical background may not be sufficient because there are issues involved with it, but it must be always expressed. See, that's how China has been playing the game. But I understand that historical narratives may not always work, because today that's why people are saying that, well, Jews never had a land. So purely historical, but it has its own meaning and sense. But cultural has a great meaning. So even though religions have changed, it's very interesting. I mean, I'm sure all of us who have traveled outside know it. I mean, in a place like Dubai, when I went there, the Pakistani and he was the driver and he was going, and we struck good friendship because he said, "Hamara country mein bhi ye problem hota hai," and all this, because they had a common problem. So it was, and then he was cursing the Sikh that, here he will make a rule today and tomorrow he is going to change it and we don't know what's going to happen. So there are some common issues of mankind. Those chords we have to touch. There are very common issues which we need to, take into cognizance and then go ahead. So historical is there, and we should not shy away from mentioning it. That yes, historically we were all together, and it's good to revive it. It's also good for people to connect. The problem with historical is that what if Bangladesh or Pakistan doesn't want to look into it? They blinded themselves. Still, this historical narrative should go on different platforms. That look, the land which you are occupying today was Gandhar, and the Savitri, she was there in what is modern day Islamabad. So we must bring those narratives. Who knows, the coming generations will be much more open and they will connect because they would want to know what land do I belong to. I am aware of people in Pakistan who want to know that what was this Harappan civilization, and they have a very jaundiced view because it's been presented by the West. So we should have our own narrative, historical, cultural. Yes, there are a lot of the Islam that is the Musalman in the Pakistan and Bangladesh is not recognized as Musalman actually in the Arab world because it's so different. So they are culturally a lot more closer. A Punjabi language, the way of life, the speech, Balochistan, so common with the Marathi culture because that's from where they had been taken. So we must bring that out. In whatever way we can bring out the cultural unity, we must try to bring out. And of course, mutual cooperation, business, trade, all this.
Sri Aurobindo says, spiritual nationalism was essential during the national movement. Therefore, it was necessary to define Akhand Bharat during those days. But in the changed context, how to situate the concept of Akhand Bharat without a national movement?
Yes, so there are two aspects to it. First, Sri Aurobindo, even in 1947, when India got freedom, he spoke of Akhand Bharat very clearly. In fact, in his Independence Day speech, he says that I got this gift on my birthday. India is independent but not yet one. So he said that, in fact, he pointed the dangers that if India does not become one, there is chance of its capacities being permanently maimed and even its destiny frustrated. And one can see how. See, people are very afraid that if the Muslims come from that side, we have a problem managing Muslims. These are all bugs created in the mind. Frankly, it is not about the... You see, all the Muslims here have become bugs. Not all of them, but many of them. Because there is a feeder in Pakistan. If you really look at it, ISI really controls what happened in Karnataka elections. Where did the money and all this idea come from? And this idea that this Ghazwa-e-Hind, which is continuing in the Islamic mind, where? Primarily in Pakistan, Simi, many of these, Popular Front of India, they were all fed by ISI. If this was not there, okay, there would be initially a bit of issues, but eventually people settle down to the idea of, well, we are one unit and we have to grow together and we have to, grow together as a single unit, develop all together. And yes, we'll have to take certain measures about demographic shifts and changes. That's not a big issue. But I don't see any other way that India can really rise to a true superpower if Pakistan remains permanently cut off. So in the modern context, it should be only by, number one, by a spiritual regeneration of mankind. There are many people in Pakistan, I'm sure we are aware of it, who have become ex-Muslims. I'm forgetting the number, probably is running in millions. And very authentic sources that is running in millions. Those ex-Muslims, their website, their things are, their followers who are in millions. There are many who are looking for something which they can turn to. So actually it's like, the pus at that point where you need to puncture it. But we are afraid. So spiritual nationalism primarily implies that we look upon ourselves and the world from the point of view of the spiritual, greatest spiritual standpoint. And if we can do that, I'm sure that this is the chance where people on the other side of the borders, other side of the fences, will start looking at some point at that light which is so high, so great, that they will turn towards it. When ashram here in Sri Aurobindo ashram was attacked by all kinds of, by local Christians and DMK party and all these people. Some said it's North India, others said it's Hindu, etc., etc. Then the mother gave this message that we hold the ideal so high, that all who have a vision can see it. And we must understand that it's a new age. So time has also begun to change. It's a new cycle. And we have to trust this movement. And that's how we have to move forward. It is not only relevant, it has become more relevant. But it has to be done in different ways. Obviously, the idea that let's have a war, and that was possible in 71. Mother had blessed that. We lost that opportunity. That's okay. So now it won't be like, okay, India has got to be one, so let's have a wage a war. No, certainly not. Military conquest without a cultural and spiritual unity doesn't last. It didn't last with the Roman Empire, it didn't last with the Greek Empire, and it won't last if India tries that. It has to be primarily a cultural and then a geopolitical unity through mutual cooperation, forming a confederation. And we have to wait. Pakistan is splitting. What we can do is maybe assimilate these portions, not as that you become part of India. You have your own governance, but there will be a kind of, like, how do people recognize a new state? How did people, when Israel came, people recognize that, okay, we recognized you as a new state. Russia has done that with Crimea. So India should do this. Those, let's say, on the India, Pak-occupied Kashmir or Balochistan, they should reach a point where India should recognize this a Baloch state. And once you recognize, and naturally, a lot of backdoor diplomacy has to go on, then you can support it militarily, economically, in many ways, openly. And that's how you have your own independence. At the same time, you have a good federated unity. That's how it is going to come about. It's just that how we take the lead. It is going to come about that way. All of them. Sindh is asking for autonomy. India has a hand in it, no doubt. So, all the more necessary. If you want to solve permanently this problem, which is bleeding India in many, many parts, right from Manipur to this area, it is all basically ISI, raw ISI. Getting money from these kind of activities. Not the average Pakistani. Let's be very clear on that.
One last question from my list of already compiled questions.
Yeah.
The floor is open to free discussion with the participants. Which Akhand Bharat do we want? Is it political Akhand Bharat or Sanskritic Akhand Bharat? As regards political Akhand Bharat, till date, no one single person could rule this whole land mass. Therefore, is it possible now? As regards the Sanskritic Akhand Bharat, now new areas around the world are embracing Sanatan Sanskriti outside the Indian subcontinent. For example, the countries such as Ghana, Ukraine, etc. So, is it possible to unite them within the concept of Sanskritic Akhand Bharat?
Well, if we go that far as to Ghana and Ukraine and Lithuania and many others, or Romania for that matter, no, that will be really spreading our wings too wide. We can spread the wings all right, but the feet should be on ground. So Akhand Bharat, cultural unity, well, Sanatan Dharma can take everything in its fold. And one day this is going to happen. Much of Europe, basically many European youths, they don't use the word Sanatan Dharma, but their beliefs are like Sanatan Dharma. Same thing is happening in America. So that's a different area. But when we talk about the Indian subcontinent, let's put it that way, that we should go for this Indian subcontinent, which includes Pakistan, the India, that is Bharat as we know today, Bangladesh, basically the SAARC countries, we take Burma, Bhutan, Sri Lanka. These should come together because this is required from the geopolitical perspective. And this must be, now this idea of one ruler is, yes, it has never been there. I mean, the only rule which went as far was King Ashoka. Of course, Shivaji Maharaj's rule was very vast. The Chola dynasty had a very big empire. And but if we look at the map of India, of Akhand Bharat, we'll see it in one is Mahabharata time, and we will see again British map of India. So what it means is, it doesn't mean that there'll be one ruler. This idea has to go in the sense that there'll be one prime minister and every all the states. India has to reach that point, try that experiment of a federated unity. So it won't be one prime minister of India becomes the prime minister of Baluchistan, becomes the prime minister of, no, it won't work out. It's unlikely to work out like that. Unless there is some freak, fate is always in place, puts its cards suddenly, unexpectedly. But what is more likely is that there will be an overarching Sanatan Dharma influence, and there will be, each of them will be, as I said, distinct units, autonomous in every way. But just like we have today Canada and America, they have a kind of relation, and Alaska, why forget that? Something similar which will emerge. See, this model has been tried. So something similar is already being tried. The Five Eyes. What is meant by Five Eyes? Now these countries strangely are experimenting upon it because this is the new idea. Now what are the Five Eyes? The Anglo-Saxon group. So basically what is their unity? It's the cultural unity. And see, they stand for Israel. They stood for Israel. But look at it. Even there, some kind of dharma is there. They didn't stand for Canada. Of course, there is economics also involved. So India should also make these bold efforts. So we should try to gather these different countries together. But before we can take in Pakistan, at least this should be ready. But Pakistan has to split, and India should, and backdoor diplomacy should go ahead. Maybe recognize Baloch as a separate state, Sindh as a separate state. And you see, it will collapse. It's a house of cards which is collapsing. They also want to separate. Even Pakistan government cannot continue. So it is going to collapse, but we have to just be a little more proactive in that direction. And then each time you recognize, take it together, that it will have its own, whatever way you want to do it, democracy or whatever way. But form a kind of political unity, which is not difficult nowadays. As I said, that experiment for a long time has gone on. America and Canada and Alaska. European countries. Why European Union could not assimilate? It will break down. It's because it is not a cultural unity. See, this is the interesting part. It is a religious, the common religion that spread across was Christianity. But cultures are very different. You go to Netherlands and you go to the Swiss people, the Polish people, they are very different because they are all different. One is the Slavs in Yugoslavia, you go further up and you don't find cultural commonality. So European Union won't work, but they have tried. They tried only in terms of military and economics. So we have a much better ground, much more fertile ground. The only irritant is Pakistan. So we should not underestimate this problem that, okay, let Pakistan remain on that side of the border. No. The sooner it breaks and it assimilates with India, the better it is. Rest of the units will not be difficult. Myanmar has helped us so much recently when the terrorists were hiding there because India played that diplomacy very well. Otherwise, China was almost making inroads into it. And we have to counter China. We have to preempt. We have to think ahead of China. It is the problem. And the mother spoke about it. Said it is the problem which may come and try to occupy India. And that would be a dangerous situation. America will come in, Russia will come in. That's when, but let's hope it won't be. So we should be very, very clear. It's good that this government is doing, constructing roads, tunnels and whatever is required, advanced landing grounds, airfields. We should be very clear, give messages that, look, we don't accept, because Chinese cannot fight war. They are people who play mind games. And if we know how to play a mind game well, they won't stand anywhere. Their whole logic is mind game. To threaten you, make you feel you are nobody. Stand up against them and they push back. So we should be very clear, understand the psyche. If at all they have a psyche. So, okay. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir, please.
Hello?
Yes, sir, please ask.
Okay, please go ahead. Yeah, I'm Raghubhushan here, calling from Rajamandri, Andhra Pradesh. Like for the last 9-10 years, we are able to see some progress in all the directions of our country. Is the Akhand Bharat are getting more closer to all the neighboring countries? Will further are taking back all those people into our vast country and taking all those problems on our head. Are we going to go back again?
So basically, as I said, taking all the people right now, or barging militarily, that definitely that is not the way. So we have to build many threads, subtle threads, cultural bonds. This is very important, because if we try to do it militarily and take all of them in, it is going to create a back reaction. So that's not the way at all. So what we have to work upon is that these destinies favoring India, or rather destinies favoring the idea of Akhand Bharat. So we see that mother spoke 50 years back that Pakistan will split. Now even few years back, people were not sure whether Pakistan will split, or one could not have even imagined, with America backing and then China backing. Now both of them are slowly dropping off, partly because they realize that it has served its purpose. So basically, at this point of time, what is important is to take advantage of destiny favoring the idea of Akhand Bharat, not take advantage for its own selfish interest. But it is important once we understand its significance for the whole world. So then we should not hesitate in, let us say, as I said, help the Baluch people to be liberated. I am sure this is happening. I have reasons to believe it is happening. But of course, we don't speak. And at an opportune time, it should be declared as an independent, state in its own right, or an independent country in its own right. And that's how they all will govern themselves. It's not like we take them on our head. But definitely, we have to assist. And in that assistance, we should not hesitate. Sindh. And right now, even with the Afghan government, right? This is what real politics is about. Real politics cannot be won or lost based on passions of that, okay, we don't like you, therefore. So if we do that, right now the time is ripe. I'm not saying that we should barge into Pakistan and run over militarily. We had an opportunity, we could have done it. Now, maybe an opportunity may come, but very unlikely, because now much has 71 and today we have nukes, which makes it a very dangerous situation. It's unlikely that there would be that kind of war now. That time it was possible. So now it has to be through liberation of each of these parts, in which India should very actively assist and then recognize. And meanwhile, it should have its group of friendly countries who are ready to recognize, and then to form a federation. That's how it will come about. Any other way of doing it will be, yes, as you said rightly, taking in all the problem. We don't take the problem. We help the people to solve their problem, but we help. Like today, we have a center-state relationship, something on a modified level. And it should be done first with Pakistan, because this is the real issue. Then we can enter into, Burma, a kind of agreement with Burma. It won't be difficult with other countries. The main issue is Pakistan. And we must understand what is feeding Pakistan is China. Recognize Tibet. You'll see that much of the Chinese thing will begin to become weak. But this requires a very courageous stand. These are all things which have been at one level determined. But we are afraid. We are afraid that it's a big power. Maybe at one point of time it was. Now we have the capacity that we can take this courageous stand. And yes, in 9 years we see many things happening in that direction. We have taken a lot of moves to counter China. It is if you want to use the word enemy, Shatru Bodh, we should not be blinded to this fact that yes, that's where the danger lies. Tackle China, Pakistan will split anyways. And then assimilate, not as one nation, but as federated units. Yes, please.
Akhand Bharat means politically and culturally, all countries which are went out from Bharat, they follow the Sanatana Dharma, isn't it? Is it correct or not?
Okay, so let me put it like that.
people follows the Sanatan Dharma, they become one unit.
Yes, but that's where the problem lies, that Sanatan Dharma is so vast. So, yeah, that's where the difficulty lies, that today we have fallen prey. Yeah. So we have fallen prey to the whole Western narrative that Sanatan Dharma is another Hindu religion. But when we look at the larger picture of Sanatan Dharma, then any path one is following, let's say one is following Islam, even if there are 5 genuine followers who are doing something very beautiful, who are really seeking God in the true way, we accept them. They don't have to become a Hindu or anything. I mean, whatever we mean by that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we all who are labeled as, Abdullah or Muhammad in the beginning, we take all of them that you are Muslim. No, you are nobody. You are not. It doesn't matter whether you are Muslim or not. So we should be very clear that any path one is following towards something very beautiful and true. Let's say there are atheists in India. It's perfectly fine as long as you don't want to harm the country and your ways are not crooked. You're not trying to. That's where we have to be careful of the left liberal thought, which is far more dangerous, the postmodernism. So that's where we have to see that it is coming like a serpent. We are focused on the Muslim religion. And there is this other thought which is pervading India and its youth, it is corrupting. So it's so important to give a very clear understanding of Sanatana Dharma. A genuine person who is following Islam but is a God seeker, God lover, but not the way Quran and Hadith. In fact, we should make people read more of Quran. They would themselves, many of them will leave. I mean, once they see what it is there. There was recently even a court was filed in the, I think, Allahabad High Court to blank out certain verses from the Quran because they felt that they are no more contextual. So, yes, certain things are contextual. These debates should be taken up that, do you want to believe all these things right till today? There are certain things which were in a certain context. Remove them. Keep the beautiful side. Practice whatever you want to do. Do namaz if you want to do, but don't do it on the road. Very clear these things should be, because that's not how it is done. Need not shout on loudspeakers. Rest you practice. So in India also we have that. Where we went wrong was Muslim appeasement. We recognize that everybody who has Abdullah in the Sir prefix and Muhammad in the beginning is all can get reservation, can get extra. This should stop. This is the danger that we did. Otherwise there is no problem. We have strengthened them and we have categorized them that by your name you become what you are. But India, Sanatana Dharma was never like that. We didn't know surnames. It's come much later. I mean, Krishna is Yaduvanshi, but we don't use the word Krishna Yadav. So this idea is already taking place. Sanatana Dharma is a way where you seek the highest, the widest, Satyam, Ritam, Brahatam. Wherever there is truth, there is Sanatana Dharma. Wherever there is Anritam, then even if you are a Pandey or a Sharma or you are doing all the rituals, you are not practicing Sanatana Dharma. So the true idea of Sanatana Dharma, its real practitioners should step into the forefront. They need not practice Hindu religion. That's what I mean. But I am sure many people will come on their own. They are just waiting. We have not presented our diamond in a proper way. We are very shy. I still see people apologetically speaking, okay, we have many gods, we have one God. No, we have one and the many. So we are very apologetic in presenting ourselves. We should not be apologetic. We should say, yes, what Sanatana Dharma is. You may accept it, you may not accept it, you may take it or leave it. But we should say the Kohinoor that we have, we should bring it out before the world. Many will come over on their own. We don't have conversion, or they will come on their own. Ghar Vapsi. Yeah.
Hello, this is Gopal Shankar from Bagalkot.
Yes.
Actually, in the context of the Akhand Bharat, we actually, in current situations in Tibet, so now we have to counter to China, means we have to bring the concept of Tibet again in the field. And the Dalai Lama is continuously going back to Chinese concepts again. And we have to see something to do in this context, no?
Yes, yes, I agree. See, Dalai Lama is not really going back. I understand his state, because it's not easy to stay exiled, run a sort of government, and then all over the world there is lip service, because no nation is taking a lead. Everybody pays a lip service to Tibet. Nations have to come together. How did people come together and support Israel? This is just a fear. See, China is expert at mind games. The feeling of its size, oh my God, Chinese Navy, this is really, we must look at it for what it is. The soldiers cannot fight. It's a known thing. Even in 62, they had this problem. We didn't have sufficient. So, this fear should go, and very courageously and boldly. What for? What favors are we going to get from them by saying that, look, Tibet is yours? What favors? They still claim Arunachal, even as recently as today. And the only way to push back a tyrant or a gunda, is to really stand and look at him in his eyes and his face and say, look here, I am not afraid of you. I am ready to call you your bluff. We should call the bluff of China. And in that, we have to do a backdoor diplomacy. There is no doubt about it. Today, America is so much ready to offload China. And there is a reason for it. That geopolitics I don't want to enter into. It bungled with its policy in the Middle East, America. And China entered into it. And now America has realized. And if it has to enter into the Middle East, it's the only way is to push back China and bring in India. So right now it's doing it only for money. It doesn't matter. But if America, India and Russia, these were the three nations Mother wanted to be together. And they come together, at least America and India come together, two powerful nations. Bring in France, bring in some other nations, recognize Tibet. You talk about democracy and freedom and liberality, come have the heart and recognize Tibet. Do it. Let China say that. They are not even ready to recognize the things done to the Uyghur Muslims. And so this, now people are beginning to talk. But we should be courageous and call out hypocrisy. Wherever there is adharma, we should call out without anything. Yes, I can understand India was still struggling to stand on its leg. And if we take the right measures, destiny will favor us. That faith we must have. God will favor us, definitely. We are not alone or left to our own resources. Engage China with Tibet. Let it begin to feel a threat from the fact that Tibet is around. And when you do that, you will see that a lot of problems from Pakistan will be eased out. Automatically it will be eased out. That's the game they are playing. They are making us engage with Pakistan. And they are having a gala time in the valley near Ladakh, because they want the silicon chips. That's what the game is. If you look at it, the Aksai Chin, the whole idea is because the silicon chips are going to be made. And they're waiting for the glaciers to melt. See how they act. They will never sign or encourage any of these, accords where there is a discussion on on melting of the glaciers and the global warming. China will never do it, because it wants things to happen that way. It's to its own advantage. And we should be ready to see it and call the bluff. Not that, global warming itself is a debatable subject, but I'm just saying that,
Actually, we have to debate more on the concepts of opposition to China, like Hong Kong issue.
Yes, absolutely. Taiwan, Hong Kong, absolutely. We should be...
They can fully control now Hong Kong. No one is speaking in any social media or anything.
Exactly. So that's because Chinese are experts at mind game. They are masters. They are masters. They made it appear. They made their own person planted there. And we just, with a person playing a mind game, if you wait till he has made a move, you are too late. So there have to be a special, I'm sure there is, I don't know whether there is or not, who can preempt, think 10 years before Chinese can think. Their minds are very sharp. Mother has spoken about it, that intellectually they are very, very sharp minds. But they have a vacuum in the heart, the psychic being, that's where they lack. And we should understand that. They think they made a policy of 2049, China ruling over the world as a superpower, and every step they are doing today is in that direction. Now people are beginning to see it. Absolutely, courageously, we should say. What will it do? It's not. Is it going to drop an atom bomb over us or try to invade? No, it's not possible. It knows it cannot do it. So when we stand for dharma, we should stand for it everywhere. So there is a need for that courage. See, that courage is wanting. And courage comes also with strength. So it's also true that at one point India was not that strong. Fortunately, we are building up our both economic strength and building up our military strength. But we must also build a moral strength and spiritual strength. That is still missing.
Sir, namaste. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
My name is Appaji Kuttupalli from Rajahmundry, Andhra Pradesh.
Namaskar.
Recording in progress.
I take a cue from your last sentence.
Yes.
See, while we have to work for the lofty ideal of Akhand Bharat, we see a lot of degradation in cultural and moral fronts of almost in every walk of our society.
Yes.
We are losing our strength in our family system.
Yes.
No longer we are so whatever you take, our education system has become a problem today.
Yes.
Not delivering what it is expected to deliver. So when such things are around us, working for Akhand Bharat, does it have any influence on such things also? Can we expect any change on these fronts also, which is very much required as on today?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That's what we were saying, that the more Sanatan Dharma rises, the more the nation will rise. The more Akhand Bharat will be realized. That's how it has to be, from within outward. And you are absolutely right. There is this whole, now we are talking about the left liberal thought, and in the name of pseudo-modernism, postmodernism, the postmodern thought. And we don't know how dangerous it is. Its whole plan is to destroy the family values and the family system. And then Sri Aurobindo say that the family, nation and the world, these are the 3 steps of Vishnu. So it has done that, and it has done it, it has already destroyed the family values. Now family as such, now it is destroying the nation, because that's what it wants. That's how it will bring anarchy. So this is how it is going, and India must counter. It has the know-how, the wisdom and the strength to counter it. How to counter it? We must bring our own narrative. See, that's what I said, we never brought our narrative. So Sanatana Dharma is very wide, all are accepted, everything. No, everything is not accepted. Common thing should be dharma, upward growth of mankind, not things that lead to a degradation. Dharma se glani. Of course, we must have our own true understanding of dharma. It's not about rituals, and there are ways to keep things together. But yes, family system, family value, but again we should be clear that what family value, we should go back to our ancient heritage, not the family values maybe 100 years back. If I look back, the family's values were already in a state of dharma siglani. Why? Because that is the time when post-invasion we were all very afraid. So the family values were full of fear. That's not what is meant by family values. In the sense that, women in ancient India, they used to do everything. They were organizers. They would govern the kingdom. There are so many instances. And they would fight the war. KK, as far back times, Swamvar was there. Savitri goes all the way and chooses. So family value is about ultimately how a family together they can contribute to each other's growth. That's what Aryan civilization is about. It's about sabka saath and sabka vikas. If you really look at it that way. In a family, each should encourage each one's growth in the true way, in the noble way, the way of the Aryan life. Not help each other get degenerated. You do your own thing, I do my own thing. And everybody does their own thing. We all fall together like Humpty Dumpty. That's not our value. And it should start right from childhood. There is a need, yes, of, for instance, I'll give a very simple example. Now, mandirs were one of the ways through which values can be transmitted. But what did we do? They have lost that charm. They have become places where priests are there, we go there, people go there, do the ghanta and give this and some donation which goes to the government, by the way. and then we come back satisfied. That was not what it meant. It was a place where we could transmit values. Mandir should be very well equipped to call in people who could come and in olden times still I remember even as a child there used to be pravachan at that level, at a village level. And it was very nice that there would people who would come and who could transmit some deep values, explain. If you asked a question, people would be able to explain what really is Sanatana Dharma, what is meant by God, what is meant by education, what is meant by father, mother, brother, sister. So, I mean, Ramayana is a standing example. So, yes, but that requires a tremendous national regeneration. And all the more reason we should put all our energy into it and go ahead rather than doubt. There is no time to doubt. I look at it like this. We should not even entertain an out of doubt about Akhand Bharat because this is something which has been sanctioned by the divine. And you see, when a yogi says, two yogis, Sri Aurobindo and Swami Vivekananda, have spoken about it. The mother has sanctioned it. So that part we should not doubt now what will happen. They will find ways and means. But we should work towards a national regeneration along the lines of Sanatana Dharma, provided we are clear as to what is Sanatana Dharma. And that's where a lot of, as I said, documents have to be taken out. Sanatana Dharma in today's light. I am myself writing a series of articles. Sanatana Dharma and unity of mankind. Sanatana Dharma and freedom. Sanatana Dharma and the problem of religion ideology. So in each of these areas, Sanatana Dharma and war. Because see, a lot of people are interpreting, no, India, we should not tolerate this, that. This is not the way that India has looked at war. War involves destruction. And destruction is sometimes, it opens the door to a new creation. So we should be very courageous. All these ideas, Sanatana Dharma and divorce, separation. What does Sanatana Dharma has to speak about it? See, in Islam they have a code which is archaic, absolutely outdated Stone Age. But we don't have any. We have a Hindu law which doesn't mean anything. Hindu law is largely about property, inheritance, this, that, marriage, separation. That's not based on Sanatana Dharma. It is based on a group understanding and people have accepted. Again, I don't want to use the word, but a mixed child, Varna Shankar, of the West and Hinduism, we have the Hindu law, which is nothing but British trying to give us some crumbs and we have accepted it. We should have our own Sanatana Dharma idea of all these things. And time is running short. And I am glad that we are discussing these things. So each of us must put ourselves heart and soul. If nothing else, take a paper, think about a creative idea about how would Sanatana Dharma view marriages. What does marriage mean for Sanatana Dharma? Is it a legal contract as in the West? Is it in the Catholic made in heaven and suffered on earth? Or is it something where you both come together in a common aspiration? Is it a means for earning money and livelihood? Both are earning and multiplying money and neglecting the child? No. Sanatana Dharma marriage is so beautiful with the fire at the center. And our children don't know it. They feel we get together and it's all about looks and money. I mean, so much can be said on every aspect. And we should start writing these things, reflect upon these things, and pen it and take out. Maybe there should be a couple of journals at least, or news papers where these thoughts are brought in together. Sanatana Dharma marriage is not just a mass marriage with Agni, those mantras and sanskar, but the real sense that husband and wife come together around a common aspiration, which is a Godward aspiration. That was the ideal. So people have to contemplate and start bringing that ideal into new creations, new forms. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So I thank Dr. Alokji for patiently responding to all our questions. And I also thank all the participants of today's discussion. And this discussion is already recorded. We hope that this recorded session can be shared with everyone at some point of time in future. So on behalf of Prajna Prabha, I offer our profuse thanks to Dr. Alokji. So we look forward to more such conversations with you in the days to come.
Yes.
To
Yes.
and to all participants.
Dhanyavad. Jai Ma.
धन्यवाद.
Namaste. Namaste.